Welcome, boys and girls. Costini here with a discussion about Alarielle the Everqueen in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. As far as Warhammer 3 campaigns go, Alarielle is in a really weird spot. On one hand, she is an extremely powerful Legendary Lord, easily one of the most powerful Legendary Lords in the game because of the sheer ridiculous amount of nonsense that she can get up to. Like over here, it's turn 27, I have 60k gold in the bank, and I'm getting to it here for provincial capital. We'll get into how you do that later, but suffice to say, she has a great amount of power. But on the other hand, she does feel lackluster. It is worth saying that a couple of months ago, there was a poll done on Reddit about DLCs. And while you may question the wisdom of Reddit, Queen and the Crown, the DLC that Alarielle is part of, came in as one of the worst regarded DLCs in the game. From my point of view, her character design is severely lacking. To explain that, Alarielle is effectively Galadriel of Total War Warhammer, or Warhammer Fantasy. Helebron is quote-unquote her rival as part of her DLC, and I have to say that both Alarielle and Helebron do feel lacking in quite a few ways. To be fair, both of them are far better as campaigns than many people might believe them to be, but there is a reason behind that perception. Queen and the Crown was the last DLC, or the last old-school style DLC that Creative Assembly released. Then we got Prophet and Warlock, and then things substantially changed in the way Creative Assembly handled DLC going forward in Total War as a whole. So you kind of feel that legacy over there with respect to Alarielle. So yeah, her character design is not necessarily that great. Her skill line is also questionable as well, in the sense that it's certainly a very powerful skill line, but Alarielle is supposed to be a really powerful caster. She does certainly have a good amount of power in terms of her campaign, but her casting capability is, well, let's just put it not that great. You do get Banishment, you do get Arcane Unforging, you do get Earthblood, but you don't really have any kind of powerful spell, nor do you necessarily have any kind of substantial magical benefit in terms of her skill line. You do have this Lord effect, the Mortal World's Torment, that does give you Dwellers Below as an ability, but it comes with a bunch of negatives as well. The problem is that this kind of Lord effect never worked all that well even back in Warhammer 2, and because of the changes to corruption in Warhammer 3, it is completely pointless because it's very, very easy to maintain a low level of corruption. But even if you could have a high level of corruption in your provinces, the fact that Dwellers Below is only something you get if you have an average corruption in your provinces of greater than 75, you're never going to get greater than 75. Even in Warhammer 2 at its worst, you would never get something along those lines. Or if you did, you would have significant issues, so the kind of benefits you get for this, just not that great. I understand the idea, like the more her territory is affected by corruption, she has downsides, but she should get more power in order to deal with those problems. But it just kind of doesn't work out in more ways than one. So effectively, you're playing this campaign with the control, corruption, and leadership RSI's benefit in her campaign, and everything else is completely pointless. Outside of that, you get the Radiant, which leaves lingering bonuses on regions she visits, and she gets 15% missile strength for Sisters of Avalorn and Handmaiden units. She's all about Handmaidens and Sisters. Those lingering benefits in a settlement provide you with 1 influence, control, growth, a chance of winds of magic increasing, in strength when changing, plus 10%, and a -5 corruption. So yeah, that kind of situation in corruption was very, very unlikely to happen, even if you screwed over your campaign in a very substantial way. Then you have a choice of a special skill line between Tradition Dictates and Blood and Fire. But this kind of skill line choice is meaningless because Tradition Dictates has always been far better than Blood and Fire. Like, you look at Blood and Fire, you get an upkeep benefit for our army, a bit of campaign movement range, Leadership, melee defense, ward save, casualty replenishment, armor for forest spirit units, cooldown to spells, winds of magic, power reserve capacity plus 15. It's only Guardian of the Land that's actually worth it. Everything else is honestly pretty pointless. Yeah, you can get 12% ward save, 20 armor for forest spirit. Casualty replenishment is not useful at all, especially because Alarielle has a bunch of casualty replenishment heroes. I mean, this kind of benefit would be great for another race, for another legendary lord. Then you look at tradition dictates, you get 2 control in all provinces, 5% income benefit, 15 diplomatic relations with high elves, construction cost minus 10%, handmaiden recruitment across all provinces, 2 hero capacity for handmaidens, and faction-wide, corruption minus 6, recruitment duration of minus 1 turn for Sisters of Valorn, so you can recruit them in 1 turn as opposed to 2, so that gives you a good amount of range power if you are aiming to take advantage of it. You may decide not to, as well as melee defense for Sisters of Avalorn. Her items, not really all that special. In fact, Stars of Avalorn comes from a difficult enough quest battle, and the kind of benefit it provides is not necessarily useful. On the flip side, her real item is the Sword of Cain, if you decide to go for it. Whether or not you need to go for the Sword of Cain is a completely different discussion. Faction-wide benefit, she gets minus 25% influence cost for intrigue at court, so you can manage diplomacy better. Yay! Dealing with influence even more. Fantastic. She does get a better invocation over here. Greater invocation of Isha, so you get immune to attrition, casualty replenishment, corruption in all provinces, and regeneration for Dryad, Treekin, and Treeman units, which you can recruit from a structure in her capital. Then you get that invocation of Lalif over here, which gives you 30% cooldown to spells, magic item drop chance, and channeling Spire ability. But it has a 15-turn cooldown, a 5-turn duration, and costs 2,000 gold. And gold may actually end up being an issue in Alarielle's campaign. Well, at least early on. Later on, it kind of doesn't matter. You'll be making more gold than anyone else. On top of that, she also has the Defender of Ulthuan mechanic. This is a really weird mechanic. Weird in the sense that here's how it's supposed to work. If Inner Ulthuan is taken by any other race that isn't High Elven, so basically the gates, the inner portions of Ulthuan, so you think of Avalorn, you think of Safri, you think of Illyrian, you think of Etain. If any of these regions are taken, or the gates are taken, then you get some fairly substantial debuffs, especially in terms of construction cost. Then lesser downsides if Outer Ulthuan is the only portion of Ulthuan that's taken by other races. Doesn't matter which race we're talking about, can even be Order Triad races, which, yeah, that works as well as you might think when you have, like, Bretonnia very close by. But when all of Ulthuan is under High Elven control, you're supposed to get benefits, diplomatic relations, control, growth, income from buildings. The problem is, one, this meter is really buggy in terms of, like, it's based on people's trust. So you get downsides if Inner Ulthuan or Outer Ulthuan is taken by any other race. You're supposed to get benefits, but the benefits are fairly minor and annoying, really, because it's very easy to lose this. And this meter kind of bugs out. I'm not sure exactly what it's based on. Is it based on the control? Well, that doesn't make sense, really, because, like, you look at my provinces over here, I have a lack of control in my settlements over here, a substantial lack of control. And only really Tyrian and Elfarian have a very high amount of control. So it just really feels weird in terms of how this meter is balanced, if it even works as intended. I've found many campaigns where I've played as Alarielle where I would control all of Ulthuan, have a very high level of control across all settlements, and still not manage to get this to 100%. So that is one of the weird issues of her campaigns, or one of the bugs of her campaigns. Another thing to talk about in her campaign, because of her rivalry with Hellebron, you get to deal with blood voyages attacking your settlements. Now, these are just meaningless armies, but they do require you to devote forces to defending your coastline of Ulthuan against Hellebron. So it just ends up being pretty annoying, considering you already got people like Kemler, Grom, Be'lakor especially, ready to launch massive invasions of your territory. I defeated Be'lakor in this particular campaign as he was invading over here. Or rather, together with Elfarian, Katik, and a bit of Illyrian, we managed to defeat Be'lakor. But yeah, we got multiple forces of Kemlar coming for me over here, though I guess that's just going to give an advantage to Bretonnia to wipe him out. So just, yeah, more weirdness with respect to that situation. You do have a lot of handmaidens, however. Even though you have that significant construction cost increase early on in your campaign, the handmaidens do ultimately break the game in more ways than one. In all seriousness, Alarielle is a powerhouse because she can take the Sword of Cain while suffering none of the penalties of the Sword of Cain. And that has to do with handmaidens and what they provide in a campaign. Because Sword of Cain affects your upkeep. Okay, fair enough, whatever. The more you play a High Elven campaign, the more money you get. Like, in this case, by the way, the way I got a lot of money, I took these 2 territories and sold them to Alifanar, and he gave me tens of thousands of gold for them by wiping out Silostra effectively. So that's the way I gained money in the situation, also fighting Bellicor. So you do have that dynamic, but then we gotta talk about handmaidens, and I'll get into how High Elves in general are broken, but they're especially broken as Alarielle. So, Alarielle can recruit up to 5 handmaidens. She starts with 1, but she can recruit up to 5 handmaidens once you unlock her special skill line over here, Servant of Isha. The reason you always go for Tradition Dictates is because of the handmaiden recruitment across all provinces. Now, let's consider what handmaidens have to offer. Each of them, every single one of them. So, each handmaiden gives you replenishment, each handmaiden gives you growth, and each handmaiden has the Diplomat of the Everqueen benefit. So each handmaiden gives you 2 diplomatic relations with High Elves. This stacks. Each of them gives you 2 diplomatic relations with all factions through Tactful, 5% income from trade tariffs, and 1 influence per turn. There's no reason to go for any other skill line with a handmaiden because the kind of benefits you're getting through Diplomat of the Everqueen is so substantial. And on top of that, even if you were to choose not to go with Diplomat of the Everqueen, you still get Favored of Isha rank 16 with every single handmaiden. This gives you a 1 control in all provinces. This is what I mean by Alarielle being ridiculously good with the Sword of Cain, which, by the way, if you know anything about Warhammer fantasy lore and the Widowmaker, the Sword of Cain, you should know it's a really bad idea to pick up that sword in general, in the lore. Like, Anarion did it, it didn't go so well for him. Tyrion did it, it didn't go so well for him. But you do get Favor of the Isha. So between the diplomacy benefits, the trade tariff benefits, the influence benefits, you just end up in a situation where all the downsides of the Sword of Cain, even at the highest level, are negated, and you actually end up stronger. And it's more than just like her having handmaidens on a faction-wide level and being able to recruit 5 of them or 4 of them, because she starts with 1 very quickly in a campaign. You can use the load save character system to abuse handmaidens to get some really, really powerful benefits like medic, casualty replenishment, or there's one benefit that's even crazier, which is Fecund, which gives you 50 growth in a local province and 5 growth in all provinces. Yeah. High Elven traits are ridiculously broken. So that's a growth benefit. Another thing that all High Elves have access to, though Alarielle is better in this respect than all other High Elves because of her handmaidens, the power of nature, benefits, so the significant control and growth benefits she has in all provinces makes what I'm about to show far more powerful for Alarielle. It is complete and utter bullshit, I should however add. See, Archmage Lords and mages, regular mage heroes, though those are limited, right? Well, actually I should mention that unlike every other High Elven campaign, Alarielle can recruit and increase capacity of handmaidens at tier 3, generally it's tier 4. She gets this unique building, otherwise if you're playing other High Elven campaigns, you have a tier 4 version of the Greater Grove, from which you can get sisters and handmaids. Alarielle has her own unique structure. That is really strong and really beneficial. So you get more handmaidens than anyone else, and you start getting them more throughout the campaign. But then you have Archmage Lords and Mage Heroes, especially Archmage Lords. If you use the load save character system, you can say, oh, it's exploiting things. But remember, even if you're not exploiting or taking advantage of the load save character system, I don't really consider it an exploit to use a system that Creative Assembly themselves introduced in the game. Just pointing that out. So CA added the load save character system. Using it to load characters from another campaign is its intended freaking purpose. But you have the administrator trait. This gives you a minus 15% construction cost for all buildings in a local province and a minus 20% construction time for all buildings in a province. It only works for Archmage Lords and Mage Heroes. Now, Mage Heroes are limited because you need Tier 3 to even recruit one and Tier 4 to increase capacity. And it only works in provincial capitals for obvious reasons. But Archmages, you might pay a lot of supply lines to make this work, but you get free buildings and instant construction, turn 1 construction for any kind of building. Combine that with the growth benefits, and Alarielle can get to Tier 5 faster than the vast majority of campaigns in the game. There are a couple of campaigns where you can do it, but keep in mind this works in every single freaking province. You combine the growth of handmaidens inherently with, especially the growth trait with administrator, you end up with a ridiculous amount of bullshit. It's especially bullshit when you consider the fact that you can construct buildings for free and then sell them to get money back. Like demolish building, like construct a building in a single turn, especially a higher tier building. Like let's say I were to construct this building, right? And then I were to demolish it. Like I could construct this, I can demolish this building, constructing this turn. It will only take 1 turn, get 1800 gold. This works with other things as well. This is fucking absurd. In fact, you can see, like the buildings I don't, you can see how cheap these buildings are. And keep in mind, I'm not really at the construction cost upside here because I have one handmaiden, over here, another one over there, right? So I don't necessarily have the full construction cost benefit in this province. But yeah, you can see buildings for free in a single turn. Now it won't show in the tooltip over here if you don't already have a building. But if we look at the Ethelmar Smith, which is an upgrade of the Elven Forge, if we look at the Grand Repository, if we look at a couple of other things, it ends up being freaking absurd in terms of the kind of benefits you can get over here in High Elven Settlement. So instant construction, free construction, massive amounts of growth, massive amounts of control, more influence than anyone else. This campaign is complete and utter bullshit in more ways than one. It's not necessarily the easiest campaign, but it is extremely powerful insofar as High Elven campaigns go. Oh, and here's the kicker of this campaign that makes it even crazier. Most High Elven campaigns have some really stupid victory conditions for the short campaign victory condition. Now, the short campaign victory condition for High Elves gives you extra hero capacity for all heroes. Guess what Alarielle has? She has one of the most sensical short campaign victory conditions in the game. Because all she needs to do is wipe out Nakari and the Scourge of Cain, which start right north of her. The other faction that's mentioned there is one that Tyrion will always wipe out. So, forget the Cult of Excess. So you basically pick a 5 Nakari, obliterate Nakari, because Nakari can't stand up to you, deal with these factions, and then just claim enough territory, and you get plus for hero capacity. So you end up having more heroes than anyone else. Like, compare this to Tyrion's situation. Tyrion has to wipe out Malekith. Maybe you get lucky, like in this campaign where Malekith is going to get obliterated by Grombrindal, by the looks of it. But more often than not, you're going to have to make your way over there to get that short campaign victory condition. So every card that is in play in a campaign is in Alarielle's favor. What's bullshit is that, okay, you unify all of Ulthuan. Good luck confederating all of Ulthuan. Someone might wonder, well, why should you battle Confederation? Well, let's just say that Tyrion's special skill line is extremely powerful and extremely useful, combined with all the other benefits that Alarielle has. Elfarian, bit of a mixed bag, to be sure. More annoyingly, of course, long campaign victory conditions do require you to wipe out the principal Dark Elven faction, so that's a bit annoying for that plus 10 hero recruit rank. Especially, having to go over there and pick a Vigor Carf in bad climate or, go wipe out Lokir. Though you might hope Nakai or Cafe Wipeout look here, but it is these kind of annoyances. So it's just a really bizarre campaign in the best situation, and it's not really that great to play. Her magic capability is not that great. Like, she's... Like, the way I would describe her, I guess in the best possible way, she's a stat stick in the campaign, on a campaign level. She gives you an incredible level of stats to the point that you feel like you're literally cheating, even if you don't use low tier character system, even if you ignore the kind of benefits, like the sheer amount of power that Alarielle can give you inherently, even if you're playing campaign naturally, are just freaking absurd. But then when you combine with the other things you can take advantage of in a High Elven campaign inherently, like administrators and all that, yeah, it feels like one of the most broken, cheap campaigns to play in the game. And it's quite a shame. Like, I think Alarielle is much better as a Legendary Lord than a lot of people give her credit for. I've listed all the reasons why she's much better as a Legendary Lord, but I'm not gonna lie, her campaign does feel lacking to actually play. I've played this campaign multiple times. I know how ridiculously powerful it is. Like, even if you're not using the 5 amigos over here for the instant construction, it's still ridiculously strong. You also get Forest Spirit units, so this is actually a better campaign and a more powerful campaign than the Wood Elven ones, because, like, yeah, you get really powerful range units, you get benefits toward those range units, and you got the entire Forest Spirit roster that the Wood Elves have. And as for melee units, you do have plenty of strong melee units as well. So yeah, this is a better campaign than the Wood Elves, but it doesn't really feel like how Alarielle's campaign should be. Note on this subject, even before the end times, she was an extremely powerful Lore of Life caster. On top of that, though I think, like, there's a tendency perhaps in certain aspects to treat her like a damsel in distress. It should be pointed out that she should be much younger than she appears in Warhammer 3. Like, she feels like older than she actually is in the lore. She's actually fairly young. So is Tyrion, so is Teclis, by High Elven standards at least. They should be fairly young. We can also talk about how Morathi should look like as a character. That's a different discussion, because yeah, Morathi should look pretty young herself, and she doesn't. Don't even get me started about poor Hellebron over there. So there's aspects where it's lacking, where it feels complete bullshit. There's inherent issues with the High Elves that affect this campaign, but it's not just issues with the High Elves that are affecting the campaign. Between Defender of Ulthuan, the Mortal World's Peril, the bullshit situation with handmaidens, ends up being a ridiculous campaign. I do hope and believe Creative Assembly should improve this campaign, and they should also improve Hellebron's campaign as well. That's all I had to say. Christine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications.